Hall of Remembrance is located in the middle of Stratford. In 1917, after losing some of their own employees in the war, the mayor and councillors decided that they wanted to do a memorial and that it would take the form of photographs of the soldiers. The newspapers at the time reported staff, but the mayor decided that no, it would include all the men that had made the supreme sacrifice. There are 136 men from World War I commemorated in here. Most of them are men that did not come back, but there are several that died just after they returned, and they are buried out at Koputama Cemetery.
Well, I went to Stratford and did not even know anything about the Hall of Remembrance. Walked in, and even then what was significantly less than what was the original intention of the Hall of Remembrance, and looking very tired, it was a very powerful experience. People walking through into the council chambers doing their business would be walking through what was for me an honour guard, the fallen who had given their lives for the ultimate sacrifice, looking at you from both sides of the hallway as you walk through. So in about 1946-47, the layout of the photographs in the hall was changed so that it could accommodate photographs of around 66 fallen soldiers from the Second World War. And so they were given the space all along the right-hand side of the hall, and all the 133 odd photographs of the First World War soldiers were moved to the left-hand side. So they were quite squashed in, and the original display cases that had been made for the photographs had been sort of chopped about a bit so that they would all be able to be accommodated on what then ended up being quite a tight space. The original task was simply, can you do something about the deteriorated photographs and the very sad-looking, tired-looking frames? Nothing had been done in terms of restoration on the frames since 1946, when they'd been reconfigured. There were two parts to the project. One was the restoration of the photographs, cleaning, reframing with acid-free card, cleaning of the photographs, cleaning of the mats, conservation of the mats, restoring some of the mats that had been damaged, restoring the frames, then putting them back in a position that ideally recreated the original concept. So the original concept was that Malone, as the commanding officer, was amongst the ranks. So he was in amongst his men, in the middle of the men. He was part of the whole group. And they were actually numbered at the back as well, or identified ABC, etc. And that was one of the things we had to restore back as a logical sequence. It was an immensely satisfying project. It was very powerful emotionally to me. It was an incredible look into the diversity of people who lived in South Taranaki. There were Dutch names, Polish names, English names, Scottish names, German names, and they'd emigrated presumably in the 1900s sometime, and suddenly they were sent to Europe to fight what in some cases might well have been relatives, family members who had stayed behind. For me, that highlighted just the total absurdity of the whole thing.
We volunteer to make the wreaths for the Hall of Remembrance because it is such a unique Hall of Remembrance with all the photos of the men who died.
It makes it special on that Anzac Day that all the colour is coming out because of the beautiful wreaths laid everywhere.
It's important to remember the soldiers who died 100 years ago so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past, and making the wreaths is one way that I can stay connected to that history.
It's important to remember the sacrifice these men made for us.
I can imagine that it would have been really upsetting and detrimental to a small community like Stratford for the future of its development, which is why we like to get involved with the Anzac commemorations.